This is ODAT Chat, your instant connection to recovery and community, one day at a time. This podcast may contain strong language, sexual content, and spiritual truth. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey everybody, welcome to ODAT Chat. My name is Arlena and I'll be your host. In case you're wondering what the heck ODAT means, it's an abbreviation for One Day at a Time. This is a podcast where my guests and I talk about their stories, so what happened, what it was like, and what life is like now. And through these conversations, I'm hoping to uncover the turning points, the lessons learned, and daily habits that lead to healing and long-term recovery. My hope is that as my guests share their experiences, you can feel connected and hopeful that if you're suffering from addiction, alcoholism, no matter what it is, that you too can find peace and hope and freedom. So today I'm honored to share a conversation I had with one of the founders of She Recovers, Dawn Nichols. She Recovers is an online community of, I think it's over 270,000 amazing women now who have come together to support and empower each other in healing from their addictions, alcoholism, and many forms of trauma. I was actually fortunate enough to spend the day in San Francisco with Dawn, her daughter Taryn, who is the co-founder, and about 80 other women at an event called Sacred Pause Saturday. Taryn led the yoga session. They had many amazing speakers. I mean, lots of new friends, and felt like deeply connected and supercharged when I left. It was really amazing. They actually have an event coming up in September in Los Angeles, actually. I think they're expecting about 600 women. They did this in New York last year. They had about 500 women. So it's going to be an amazing event. I can't wait to go. If you would like to come too, there will be information in the show notes, or you can visit sherecovers.co. So listen, I really enjoyed this conversation with Dawn. She's an amazing woman. She has accomplished an amazing amount. She has brought so many women together and helped countless women. So listen, I can't say enough nice things about her, so I'll just let the conversation speak for itself. So with that, please enjoy this conversation with Dawn. Well, Dawn, thank you so much for joining me on the ODAT Chat podcast today.
Hi, Arlena. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes. Listen, you and I started out chatting online, and you were so gracious to invite me out to your workshop in San Francisco, the one day, what did we call that? A one-day sacred pause, or?
Yeah, we call our one-day workshop Sacred Pause Saturday or Sacred Pause Sunday, depending on which day of the weekend we hold it. And they're just generally kind of titled Yoga and Connection workshops.
Yeah, that was an amazing workshop. I went with two of my girlfriends. We went up for the day. It was, and it was in San Francisco, and San Francisco is not known to be like super sunny and warm all the time, especially.
I heard that.
Yeah, but it was the perfect day. It was crystal clear, blue skies. It was warm, and I was sitting on my yoga mat looking out the window to the Golden Gate Bridge and the yacht harbor. It was such a beautiful venue, and I left that event feeling so lit up. I was just on fire. I mean, I just felt so inspired by, the organizers, all the women that had attended and shared. It was such a fulfilling and just really nourishing event. I just applaud you at being able to assemble such an amazing group of women.
Oh, well, we put the call out and people show up, and it's all about co-creating not just the space, but the experience. And it always has been for She Recovers. So that day, what really made it, of course, were the 80 women who just registered, showed up, came and shared a little bit of themselves. Of course, we're also very grateful to the Center for Open Recovery, a nonprofit organization in San Francisco, who we partnered with to hold the event, and also to our sponsor for the event, the Shame Booth, another San Francisco group who's doing, both organizations are just doing amazing work to eliminate the shame and stigma around addiction and recovery. So we're grateful to them, and always grateful to the women who show up at our events, whether it's a retreat on the beach or on an organic farm or a one-day workshop or a sharing circle in one of our local chapter towns. It's just it isn't, I always just say that it isn't about us. It isn't about Taryn and I, although we're the creators of She Recovers. It's about the women who show up and co-create the experiences with us. So you and your friends and all those other amazing women were really what made the day.
Yeah, it was really beautiful, and I can't wait to do it again. And we'll talk a little bit about She Recovers and the events that you have. I know you did one in New York where you had Gabby Bernstein, Marianne Williamson, and some others speak. And then this year it's going to be in September in LA. Is that right?
Absolutely, at the Beverly Hilton in Los Angeles, September 14th to 16th. Yeah.
Super nice.
We're really
very excited. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So excited.
I can't wait. Yeah. It's going to be great. And how many women are you expecting to show up?
We were 500 in New York, and we'll be 600 in LA.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
it's
exciting.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Very cool, yeah.
Yeah, just being able to, I'm just amazed that being able to assemble that many women in one spot is a feat in and of itself.
Well, I think I would say, we're a pretty large organization. We have 269,000 people following us on Facebook, and we have some other smaller groups. And our growth and kind of our success, I guess, is really, it's a function of being kind of an umbrella over the already great work that's being done in the space, in the female recovery space. So I just always say that, it isn't that we've created something unique, and although, I think we are unique, but more than that, what we are is we've just been around for a really long time, and we've checked in with and kind of collaborated with and leveraged off of the great projects that are already going, all of the wonderful podcasts, all of the bloggers out there, the websites, the authors, people who are writing. We've always shared as much as we can about all of the other work that's going on. We're all about sharing resources and ideas for women because, first of all, we think we're all recovering from something, and as important or more importantly, we believe that we all recover differently. So it's been really important to us, whether it's on a Facebook page or at our events, that we expose women to the widest variety of recovery pathways and ideas for wellness as we can. And that's meant, figuring out and doing the research ourselves, like who's looking at eating disorder recovery and who's looking at love addiction, and what are the resources that they bring to bear, and how can we make sure that women out there, most of whom, if you're recovering from one thing, chances are you've got a few issues you're going to be working on, if not at that particular moment, of getting sober or clean. These issues are going to come up. So it's always just been all about collaboration. Right. And so thank you. But we don't necessarily just put the call out ourselves to these events. We put the call out, and then 50 women who have communities of their own say, hey, let's do this. And those communities come together. The magic in New York City was really very much about that. We had 10 sober bloggers, 10 of the most brilliant, influential bloggers, female bloggers in kind of the sober cyberspace. And they brought their communities, the speakers, Marianne Williamson and Gabby Bernstein and Glennon Doyle and Elizabeth Vargas from 2020. They told their communities that they were speaking. And so all of these women came together, and it's just been, it's just that the power really is in gathering, I think. For the longest time, we were just a Facebook page, and I saw the power of online connection, and I believed that it was powerful, and I knew that it was making a difference in women's lives. But it wasn't until we held our first retreat and then our second retreat, and now we're heading off to Mexico in May for our 20th retreat. But it's really in the coming together in person with people that you may have already made connections with online. I just think that the magic is online, but the kind of the special sauce is in-person support. And so She Recovers has always been about that mixture. Online recovery is more accessible to more people. Not everybody can afford to come to a one-day workshop or a retreat. So again, it's just been about providing as many different avenues and pathways to information and resources as we can. I get all fired up talking about it all the time, but the biggest point for me is honestly finding out about podcasts like yours and podcasts like the Bubble Hour and, the other ones that are out there. There's so many. Yeah. And to be able to share that work with other women and have them come back and say, hey, thanks for sharing that. That kept me clean, or that, that got me through my love addiction first 30 days or whatever it was. It's,
right.
And for me, I need all these resources too, right? I struggle. I've been in recovery for 31 years, and I don't ever honestly think about doing drugs anymore, but I tend tend and trend towards workaholism. I can sometimes fall down the rabbit hole of codependency. So finding out where all the resources are is not just for the community, it's also for
Right.
me.
Well, that's how you know that a resource is valuable, is that if you apply it to your own life and it helps you, right?
Mm-hmm.
We understand the complexities of addictions and things like that. So, like I do the podcast for myself as well. I mean, I learned so much from the people that I speak to, and everybody has sort of a unique take on all the different solutions out there, whether they're teachers, workshops, resources, events, experiences. I mean, there's so much solution out there.
Yeah.
And really that's what I see you highlighting, and that's what I try to do as well. But I do spend a little bit of time sort of talking about how we got to where we are. So maybe that would be a good place to start with you, is maybe you just share a little bit about, what you do professionally, and then, let's take a step back and talk about family of origin stuff, because I feel like that's that's usually where it all starts, right?
Yeah, those darned family of origin issues, right? Which is, here I am. Right now I'm visiting in Edmonton, Alberta, where my sister lives with her family. So my sister's 13 years in recovery, and her husband is, I think, 16.
Oh, wow.
My dad is here. He recently he's having some health issues, so I'm here to kind of figure out what we're going to do about that. I have nephews here and a niece and her. It's really awesome to be in a family, especially visiting family members who are in recovery. Mm-hmm. Just kind of no drama. Somebody was talking the other day on one of our Facebook groups about some family drama that they were expecting to come up this summer with a visit, and I reflected on that for a moment and thought, oh my gosh, all the drama in our family is behind us as far as I can tell.
Wow, that's
knock on
amazing.
Wood, and not that we're a perfect family, we still obviously, but I have a son and a daughter who are both in recovery, and then the other two kids they're not addicts or alcoholics, so they haven't needed to do that. I mean, obviously we've got a few quirks, each and every one of us, but I just grew up in a family. We were 4 kids and a mom and dad, and my mom came from a traumatic childhood. Her father was in World War II, and I always say that I'm an addict because of Adolf Hitler.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather came back traumatized from the war experience, and he came back with a drug and alcohol problem, and was extremely violent for many years after the war. So my mom kind of witnessed that, and that affected her. And I guess we grew up in a family where there wasn't a lot of emotional support, and we weren't really ever. And again, I say that, and I don't make excuses for my parents. We didn't necessarily get what we needed in terms of emotional kind of intelligence and upbringing, but we were well cared for and fed and had a lovely home all the time. But back in the 60s, when I was a kid, there just wasn't the awareness that you had to kind of engage with your children about their feelings. So there's that piece of it. But even if there had been, I'm not sure that my parents would have had the capacity to do that. So I think I just grew up not really knowing whether I was loved or appreciated. And in the absence of that assurance, I think I made up a story that I wasn't lovable. And my older brothers certainly didn't seem to care for me very much. I was just a little squeal artist. It was my job to find them doing things wrong and then to tell on them, because I think somehow that made me the good kid and them the bad kid. And I was just trying to look for, somebody to tell me that I was doing something right. And that's where I got the attention, or at least if I didn't get the positive attention for it, I see them getting the negative attention, which was somehow reinforcing, which is pretty messed up when you think about it. But in any event, our family underwent some changes when I was about 15. My parents separated for a period of time. They did get back together and were together up until the time my mom died. But during that kind of family breakup time, I just kind of became even more invisible in the family that I had been, and started using drugs a little bit, and actually left home as a teenager. I was just 16, and I was getting into a little bit of trouble. And I remember just my mom saying something to me like, you just can't behave like that. And I said, I can do whatever I want. I'm going to quit school, just to test her to see what she would do. And she, instead of saying, well, there's no way on earth you're quitting school, she said, well, if you quit school, you have to get a job. And then I felt stuck, like, oh my God, now I have to quit school. And I did, which was, I look back and it was just insane.
Oh, wow.
But I did quit school, and I ran away to the Yukon. For those of you who know where Alaska is, that's next door to Alaska. Well, to the Yukon is the Canadian side of the country. But 16 years old, and with absolutely no skills, no life skills, and started hanging out with older people who were doing drugs. And that just kind of became my scene in my life. And I very, very, very quickly ended up doing some pretty dangerous drugs and became addicted. I think by the time I was within a year, I was just an absolute basket case, and I was overdosing and attempting suicide. And yeah, it was a pretty rough few years.
Oh, wow. What kind of
actually we at
what
that
kind of
time it was
drugs were you
cocaine
taking?
mostly. You know, I did play around with heroin just
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. Didn't like it, thankfully, I say.
Mm-hmm.
And really into pills. I was really into
Wow,
pills,
lucky you.
and any opioids, right? I loved cough syrup, just anything, pot, booze. I just would do anything.
Right.
So yeah, it just kind of went along that way, and I probably wouldn't have lived or survived my addiction, but I got pregnant unexpectedly when I was 20. And to this day, I say that my oldest daughter, Ashley, saved my life because I wanted to be a mom all of a sudden. I mean, it wasn't a planned pregnancy, but it was like, okay, yes, I do. I want a child. I want to have a baby. And of course, when she was born, I finally had somebody who I knew with my whole heart loved me and I loved them. Her dad and I were kind of an off again, on again thing until she was 2. And that was a really unhealthy relationship, not abusive or anything, just kind of, and just didn't work out. And so for those few years, I was probably did less drugs and less drinking. I mean, I won't say I did not stop drinking through my pregnancy. And I just kind of say that's just a fact. A lot of women have that experience. But I was always trying to not drink and always trying not to do drugs from the time that I got pregnant. And a few years later, after Ashley was born, I did fall in love with another addict. And we had another child who's now Taryn, who you met, who leads our Yoga for Recovery program and is a co-creator of She Recovers. And when Taryn was born, I was still, just in that place of really trying to not do drugs. And when she was 2 years old, I finally had enough. That relationship ended up to be really, really unhealthy and abusive, physically abusive, mentally abusive. And I ended up in 1987, I just hit a bottom. And it wasn't a bottom of, daily using and drinking. It was just after years of mostly not using and then binging and then not using for a long period of time again. I just really had it. I just couldn't go on anymore. And I for me, it was like I couldn't stay in the relationship and I couldn't get out of it unless I got my act together. So I went to treatment in 1987 and really proud to say that I haven't touched cocaine or alcohol since July 21st, 1987. But I did for the first 2 years after that smoke a heck of a lot of pot.
Wow.
It was my kind of attempt at harm reduction. And then I went back to treatment at the end of that 2 years and got clean. I haven't smoked pot now since 1989. And then since 1989 until today, I've been clean and sober every day but 2. In 2000, when my mom passed away, I took conduct of her leftover narcotics and couldn't quite deal with the pain of the loss. And it had been quite traumatic. She'd had a terminal disease that was just just really difficult on us. And so for 2 days, I numbed out on drugs, and not even in a way like nobody even really knew that I was doing what I was doing, and I wasn't really thinking about it as a relapse. It was a coping mechanism. But about 4 years after my mom passed away, my sister hit her bottom, and I took her to a 12-step meeting for drug addicts. And I was kind of sitting in that meeting, which I had been to for years and then stopped going to. And I was sitting in that meeting thinking, something doesn't feel right here. And then kind of reevaluated what they described as my clean time, or what we talk about as our clean time. And I changed my date in that program. I still believe that I've been in recovery for 31 years and the journey has been what it has been. But if somebody wants to, I respect 12-step program that does actually have abstinence as its bottom line. And so when I'm talking in those meetings or with people in that program, then I'm happy to say that I've got going on 18 years clean. Yeah, so that kind of happened. When I got clean, I fell in love with an actually wonderful person who was also in recovery, and he just celebrated 29 years in February. And we were married. We've been married for 26 years as of last December.
Congratulations.
So we got into a relation. Thank you. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We got into recovery. We got into a relationship pretty early in recovery, which was kind of frowned upon in the circles of our business. Whatever. We proved everybody wrong, I suppose. I went back to school and was supported to go back to school, and then got addicted to school and stayed for 13 years and graduated in 2005 with PhD in healthcare policy.
Wow.
And actually at the moment that I was, around the same time I was getting ready to defend my doctoral dissertation in 2005, I ended up in the hospital within an hour of my death. It was determined that I had colon cancer, and the tumor had perforated my colon, and I was septic. So the surgeon said that if, he hadn't opened me up when he would, that I would have been dead within an hour. And so that was a real that opened my eyes. That was pretty interesting to then kind of go through cancer treatment, chemotherapy for a year. And you would have thought that I would come out of that just so grateful for having survived 2 deadly diseases, first addiction and then cancer. But after the year that I had doing chemotherapy, what I felt was that I was really behind in my life. And I was, financially, my husband had supported me through his business all those years. And I had lots of scholarships, so I was contributing, but not enough, or not my fair share. So once cancer was kind of behind me, I hit the road kind of trying to earn and succeed and create kind of my life. I was teaching full-time at the University of Victoria, not full-time, part-time at the University of Victoria. I was doing consulting in mental health and addictions and aging. I was also working full-time in government as the director of research in a large kind of team. I was directing 28 researchers. And so for 5 years, I had 3 jobs.
Wow.
And I became addicted to work, and I turned into a crazy person. And I hit a bottom in February 2011 with workaholism that was every bit as dark and scary for me as my bottom with drugs had been. And that was the real awakening for me and the beginning of She Recovers, because I went on leave for 4 months, and during that 4 months really had a hard look at my life and figured out that I didn't want to work 3 careers anymore, and I really wanted to do something with women in recovery. And I started a blog called Recovering Dawn that was about recovery from workaholism. And then I started blogging about the parallels between recovery from workaholism and recovery from drug addiction and from grief and from codependency and from all the things. And the blog attracted, a fair number of women who really found the message resonant. And so it kind of started a conversation in my head about how we're all recovering from something. At the end of 4 months, I went back to work, and I could no longer blog every evening. For those of us who write and do blogs, we know that it can take hours to write one simple short blog.
Yeah, it really does.
So when I went back to work, I switched over to Facebook, and I just decided rather than call it Recovering Dawn, I would call it She Recovers. And it would just be a place where I could continue to engage in cyberspace with women who were seeking or sharing resources. Here we are. However many years later, the Facebook page, within a few months, it was growing really fast, and I realized, there's something going on here. There's a need for this. This is something that women are after. And then I got laid off. I got laid off after being back at work for 5 months, and it was like the greatest gift I ever had, because they gave me a year severance.
Oh, wow.
And by that time, I had determined that I really wanted to do something different. So I signed up for a recovery coach training course, and I went and sat on the beach in Mexico and thought about how I wanted to devote my life to helping women in recovery. Made the decision to hold a retreat in Tulum in November 2012 with a good friend of mine, Sharon Lee, who lives down in the Mayan Riviera, and with Taryn, my daughter, who was by that time in recovery herself and a yoga teacher who had done training in recovery yoga as well as trauma-informed yoga. So we held our first She Recovers retreat in November 2012 in Tulum for a week. And at the end of that week, we had 18 guests. And at the end of the week, 9 of them signed up for the retreat the next year, which we actually hadn't realized we were having a retreat the next year. But we decided we would. So again, within, a year or so, here we were, people would say, what is She Recovers? And I'd say, it's a Facebook page. And then it's a Facebook page, and it's a retreat program. And we kept doing the retreats. And that eventually evolved into what She Recovers is right now, which is so many things that I always forget to say what it is. But very quickly, I would tell you that it's still retreats. As I said, we're going to Mexico in May. We have 2 one-week retreats back-to-back at a villa that we've been going to since 2013. We have a few spots left in both of those retreats, as it so happens, because we had some cancellations. We've also got our one-day workshops, and we've done the 4. It's where I met you in person just a month ago. We're heading to Atlanta for our next Sacred Pause workshop on April 28th. We have a She Recovers Coach designation program. We partnered with an organization, an institute of training called the IPRC, International Association for Professional Recovery Coaching. And they provide our women with professional life coaching and professional recovery coach training. And then we provide them with an added 10-hour module called the She Recovers Coach designation. And then we promote them as She Recovers coaches. I just think coaching is an excellent pathway for recovery.
Oh, absolutely.
it's kind of how we're growing our small, I don't like to use the word army, but I don't know what other word to use, but when we want to expand our brand, expand our offerings, expand our services, and the way we're going to do that is through our coaches, because we want to do more retreats and more workshops and help more women. So knowing that we have women who are trained not just in our guiding principles and philosophy, but also in actually, professionally helping people in recovery makes a lot of sense for us. So we're doing that. We're offering an online course called She Recovers Life, which will be launching later this spring. It'll be a 6-week program for women who are just looking to kind of develop their own pathway of recovery in a supportive group, a small peer group of about 12 to 15 women online. And then the big signature events, talked a little bit about already about She Recovers in New York City, and now we're going to LA in September. So that's kind of what She Recovers is now. We're also, we would love to one day have our own nonprofit so that we can, it's changing all the time. My head, I change my mind a lot about things, but more recently I've been thinking about wanting to provide kind of grassroots services for women as a nonprofit, see what that's going to look like. We've got to do a lot of strategizing before we get there, but
yeah,
we've got plenty to do.
You have lots to do, and it seems like there are so many opportunities, and women are so creative, right? There's just so many opportunities for collaboration and learning and teaching and gathering and healing. I bet it's difficult to just stay focused on a few things. So many opportunities.
Yeah, our business partner Emily is always saying, like, okay, well, let's not even talk about that idea right now. Let's just do the things we're doing. But here's how I get things done: is that I do collaborate, right? So I didn't develop the She Recovers Life program. One of our master coaches did. And the workshops, we have one of our wonderful event producers from New York is actually the person who manages Peyton. You met her.
I did.
She manages the workshops and the retreats. We have, it is Taryn does the yoga, and I do kind of a lot of the back office stuff, but Peyton's taking over a lot of that. It is very much about kind of inviting people in, and our coaches are going to be the people who are going to be doing, a lot of we have a couple of local chapter pilots right now. We're trying out kind of like, what does She Recovers in the community look like? And right now it looks like She Recovers sharing circles, which are led by 2 signature coaches who are handpicked by us. They're women who have done our training and have just been a member of the She Recovers family for years and years. We know that they know exactly what we're trying to do. So in Seattle and in Victoria, BC, once a month in Seattle and every 2 weeks in Victoria, our coaches, Leanna in Victoria and Kelly in Seattle, gather together and they have a She Recovers sharing circle. And it's just really an opportunity for women to come together and kind of share where they're at, share their wins, share some resources, and just have kind of a community and connection. And then outside of that kind of semi-formal sharing circle, because it is, you sit in a circle and you share, the women are doing things kind of outside, hikes and going to different speakers and events. And
no, okay, so it sounds like there's just lots of different programs that in different ways that people can engage. But let me just circle back a little bit to sort of how you found the solution to begin with, because it sounds like through your journey you came to maybe is a 12-step program how you initially, or did you say a treatment centers? Okay, first the treatment center. Well,
first the treatment center and then a 12-step program, and a 12-step program for the first 6 years of my recovery, religiously, a 12-step program.
So you got the sponsor and went through all the 12
steps. Did the steps, did all the service. Yeah, spoke at conventions. Like it was my pathway.
Wow.
And I was convinced that it was the only pathway. But to be fair, at that time, there wasn't much else going on, right? There wasn't the internet. Nobody was saying join a Facebook group and get
support.
Isn't
that funny? No, listen, we are so old that
yoga. I know, right?
We are so old that we got sober before the internet.
We got clean. I got clean before cell phones. It was just insane, right? It was. So yeah, and I still consider myself a member of a 12-step program. I will be honest. I don't go to very many meetings. My home group is on Thursday evenings, and generally by Thursday evening, I'm so done with recovery.
Right.
Like I don't have another word about recovery left in me.
Yeah, it's fair though, because you have to balance out. You have to find some kind of balance somewhere, and your vocation has become about promoting healing and helping others and being of service. So, I mean, that's fair. And I want to address something that you said about, the first 6 years, the 12-step, I'm also 12-step oriented, and I was sort of indoctrinated into that idea that, and listen, this is just me, this is my own personal opinion. I'm not speaking for any organizations. I'm just saying that from my experience, I was sort of indoctrinated to think that this was the only way. Because I had seen people who had, tried church or maybe went to treatment, but then didn't follow up with any support network afterwards, and then they sort of fell back to their old ways. But I'm also 23 years into this deal, and my eyes, especially doing the podcast, my eyes have been opened to the fact that there are just so many other avenues now that I really have to be open-minded and honest and willing to sort of, investigate, that thing that they were saying about, which is common in the 12-step rooms, is content prior to investigation. So I wanted to investigate all these other avenues, and it seems like there are lots of common threads, like, confession and service and restitution, the personal house cleaning and admission of wrongdoings, all that stuff. It seems to be, 12-step programs don't have a corner on that market, but it seems like there are a lot of other opportunities now for people to recover from all kinds of things. And I totally agree with what you said about if people are struggling with one thing, they typically struggle with other things too, because at the end of the day, drugs and alcohol are just a symptom of a deeper problem. So let me just ask you, what maybe sort of tools or exercises do you feel, outside of the 12 steps maybe, or maybe including the 12 steps, what were the things that you did to help you excavate all the, the hurts and wounds that you incurred?
Yeah. Well, I think if a person is able to go to treatment, that's a true gift to one's recovery. Just to have that kind of extended period of safety and introspection is pretty amazing. And I get that not everybody gets to do that. I didn't have to pay to go to treatment at the time where I lived in Canada. It was paid for. It's not now as much. And you can still get treatment that is funded, but not as easily. So treatment was really so important to me. It was such an eye-opener for me. I mean, I didn't have the basics. I didn't have any of the basics. I didn't understand any of why, the whys. And then the 12-step program just became so very important to me that within just a couple of years, even that wasn't enough. I was struggling with codependency and in a new relationship, that's lasted to this day, but it was difficult. I didn't know how to be in a healthy relationship. That was like messed up. And some of the things that I'd kind of uncovered in not being loaded anymore were traumatic and needed to kind of be investigated. So I went to psychotherapy for 18 months, and I went twice a week for 18 months. And that was really, really important to me. I think it was probably one of the things that, and I've been back I've probably been through 3 or 4 rounds of like a year of therapy here and there. So that was really important. I also really believe in, it's not really the proper term, but I call it bibliotherapy. I've just been an avid reader always of all the books. And
me too.
Still am, right? It's insane the number of books I have. And now I can't even keep up with them all because people send them to me
Oh,
now
nice.
to review and promote. It's wonderful, but I kind of I would say I need to go back to university and have a reading week where I can just read for a week.
You need a speed reading course.
Yeah, I actually am a really fast reader.
Oh, nice.
But even then, I can't get through the amount of books I have. It's pretty crazy. I believe that movement is really important. I'm a walker. My daughter is, of course, and yoga is a really big part of She Recovers. I'm a laying down yoga person. I like to lay down. I always say to Taryn, I don't like doing jumping around yoga. So I like yin yoga, restorative yoga, just really quietness. I think that I try, nutrition is important to me, and I go through phases where you really try and focus on eating healthily. I'm very fortunate. I don't cook at all, but my husband is like a fantastic cook, and we have, he just cooks really wonderful meals all of the time. And So I think that it's a really important piece for me. I go a little bit crazy when I have too many carbohydrates.
Don't we all?
What are the other things? I guess for me, the biggest thing in my recovery, I say, has been my connection and friendships with other women. That's, if everything else was taken away from me, well, I mean, food wouldn't be taken away from me, but if I couldn't get to 12-step meetings, if I couldn't get to the retreats and the workshops, and She Recovers and the work that I do and the connections that I make is such an important part of my recovery. But it's the close personal relationships with women that has lifted me up and continues to sustain me above all else. And that's just a fact. It's everything. It's everything to me.
That's beautiful. And the one thing that we didn't really talk about is, do you have a concept of a higher power? Did you grow up in the church or anything like that?
I was raised Catholic, and my parents weren't Catholic. My dad was Protestant. My mom was Catholic, so they weren't. The church wouldn't marry them, and my mom got irritated, so stopped going to church. But my Irish grandmother insisted that we go to church, and we went to Catholic school. So I grew up with the usual, the punishing God, and wasn't really into the whole God thing. I found a higher power in recovery very early when I started my 12-step program. And, I started off with, I remember I had a rock because I didn't believe in God, and I had a rock, and it was my higher power. And when I was early in recovery, I was pretty dramatic. I liked attention. And, I remember, so I lost my rock, and I went to a meeting and cried about losing my rock, like just insane, right? And then I did, I do now. I have a very close relationship with a higher power, and I don't choose to really call it anything because it changes all the time. It's kind of, sometimes it's just fate, sometimes it's the universe, sometimes it's just this feminine kind of, I sometimes call my higher power Mary, because that is a kind of a kickback to my Catholicism.
Oh, sure.
And that works for me. But I do pray and I meditate, and I guess I find this again, like the spiritual moments in my life are when I'm watching or playing with one of my grandkids, or when I'm walking along the beach where I live in beautiful British Columbia, Victoria on Vancouver Island, or when I'm on retreat on one of the beach that we have, our own private beach, staring out at the Caribbean. I have really, really deep spiritual connection to nature,
right,
and the moments, right? And, watching my daughter, sometimes, like even in San Francisco, like every time I watch, or I'm in one of her yoga classes and she's speaking, and she's such an articulate, beautiful young woman. And
she's a wonderful speaker.
And isn't it amazing? Yeah. And I mean, like, that's God or Mary or somebody other than me that created that, because it's pretty amazing. And my other daughter, Ashley, too, is just, I just have this most amazing family. And my sister, being here with my sister, and, we had a really tormented relationship for many years before, even before and since she got into recovery, I guess. But we've been really good for quite a number of years now. And just to be able to be in each other's company and be so comfortable and loving with each other. And I'm so proud of her and everything she's done. Yeah, like, I don't know, even in the hardest of times, which this is a really hard time for us. We love our dad. He's not doing very well. It's just, there is this higher power that's kind of taking care of us and him right now. And we I'm speaking for her now because I'm the older sister, I get to do that. But I think that we're feeling held, in some sort of power that is greater and beyond that which we can control. And I'm grateful for it right now.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. It sounds like you're one of four, and you mentioned that your sister is in recovery. What about your other two siblings? What is your relationship like with them?
We have two older brothers, and because we just don't live anywhere near them, we love them when we see them. We're very, we love them dearly, but we don't, we actually aren't usually even in much contact. We have been more recently because of Dad, and we're here with him, so we're kind of relaying information back to them. But I maybe see my brothers every few years, and they're good big brothers. They love us. We don't have that much in common. They're not in recovery. So, yeah, it's different, I guess, but, I love them.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. I mean, not every sibling relationship has to be super close, but it sounds like you have a good... Then
there's no drama.
Drama.
There's no drama, right? We get together and we laugh and we reminisce and we do all the things that you do, but, they're just not part of my daily life, which is sad, and yet it always is. I mean, I left home when I was 16, so I I kind of severed those relationships starting then.
Did you leave the house before they did?
Before one of them did. One of my brothers, we moved out west, and he had just gotten married. He was 20, and so we left him behind. But I did leave the house before my older brother was still at home when I left. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, because you were so young. And okay, so
yeah.
you yourself have 4 children?
I have 2 daughters, Ashley and Taryn, and my husband has 2 sons.
Oh,
and
okay.
His youngest son came to live with us when he was 8 for a few years, off and on. He was back and forth between us and his mom. So I'm very close to him. He's in recovery. Oh my gosh. You know what? He's got 2 years today. I just
that's so great.
Yeah.
Do you want to give him a little sobriety shout out?
He probably doesn't listen to podcasts very often, but we're just so proud of Blaine. And, he lives in Victoria, close to us. And our grandson, who is 9, is like one of the joys of our life. And then my other daughter, Ashley, and her husband live 2 blocks away. And Marley Dawn, her 2-year-old little girl, is the other half of our heart. So we've got a really close nuclear family, I guess. Our extended family is geographically distant. So that causes some emotional distance as well.
Yeah, that's normal. I mean, but like you said, no dramas. And it sounds like you're very focused and your life is very full. So yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess there's a bunch of different, there's so much to talk about when it comes to recovery. Do you currently sponsor other girls, or do you feel like...
Oh, I'm a terrible sponsor right now. I do have 3 sponsees who they're like, 10 years, and 7 years. And yeah, I keep telling them they should fire me and find themselves another sponsor. And I think they're just lazy. Actually, they're pretty amazing. One of them is, still uses me as a sponsor. She's got a fair bit of crisis going on in her life. Her husband is in active addiction, and he's an opioid addict, so that's been pretty stressful.
Wow.
So she does, we are in touch. And the other one just had a baby girl 2 years ago, close in age to my granddaughter. So, and she's having another baby, so she's just really doing well and living a life of a new mom and a young mom, and working and busy with all of that stuff. So we're in contact. But we haven't done any step work or anything for quite a while. And then the third one is actually like a superstar sponsee, but she's so busy sponsoring right now that I think she gets most of her support from her sponsees and being a sponsor. She's always leading them through step guides and step groups. And just because I've been traveling so much this past few years, I try and stay in touch with them, and certainly let them know when I'm away, or let them know when I'm back home, and see them when I can. But I would not call myself a very good sponsor right now. But
well, you're doing a lot of service
okay
work, so I think it would be hard to
and that's
squeeze
the
in.
thing, right? That's the thing. I won't take. I would never take on a new sponsee, because it would just not be fair.
Right.
And I do feel like my entire life is a 12-step, right? It is. So yeah, I think I'm perfectly okay with the amount that I do in the world, and I'm proud of it, and it fills me up. I get as much and more back than I put out, always.
Yeah.
And I'll continue to do this, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. I haven't had my own sponsor for a number of years as well. But I live with somebody who actually, he's kind of a little bit of a show off these days. He's in a step group. He's just finishing up a step group. So, and now he's starting some other sort of step thing with one of his sponsees. So I joke sometimes that he's doing enough work for the both of us.
That seems like perfectly reasonable out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so since you do so much work in recovery, I would imagine, and you're fighting this workaholism thing, and you have so many things going on. How do you maintain balance between everything, between self-care and giving? Because that seems to be a common problem for women. Well, maybe, I don't know if it's just a woman thing, but maintaining balance between self-care and service.
Well, I'll be honest with you. There are times when I'm not very good at that, and it's a few times leading up to New York City last year. I came as close to feeling like I was in full-blown relapse and workaholism as I had been for however many years it had been since I had my bottom with workaholism. it was dangerous. And,
Yeah.
I recognized it. I felt it. I was blacking out. Like I black out from work.
What?
That's what happens for me. I do. Like I black out about whether I forget what I've done in terms of emails, whether I've had a call. Like it's really crazy. It's
You just have
stress
so
does
much,
that, right?
you just have so much going on. You can't remember everything.
I can't remember. And then I'll look at something and like I'll like say, oh, did I send Arlena that email? And then I look and I actually sent you an email that was really long and must have taken me 20 minutes to compose, and I don't remember doing it.
Wow.
So
yeah.
that happened last year. And so lately, again, it's been, Taryn is always worried about me. She's kind of she keeps an eye on me, but how I don't maintain balance like on a daily basis. I don't. My balance looks like I go hard and then I stop. So right now I've been here with my dad and my sister and been keeping up on emails and calls as I can, but, trying to spend time with my family more than work, and have been somewhat successful at that. But I've been here for 2 weeks. I mean, I can't stop working for 2 weeks. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But I go home tomorrow. I go home tomorrow night, and what balance will look like for me is like I'm not getting out of bed on Sunday. I'm going to stay in bed. I'll catch up on Grey's Anatomy or whatever it is I've lost track of,
Right.
and I'll read a book, and I'll have a nap, and I'll have a big old hot bath, and I'll book a massage for next week, and I've got a few girlfriends that I'm going to have lunch with, and I'm just going to get through till 10 days later when I have to come back here for another 5 days, and then I have to go to a conference in Boston, and then I have to go to Atlanta for our next Sacred Paws workshop on April 28th. And then I go to Mexico, and for 2 weeks, I'm going to be on a beach with 20 other women.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
2 different women.
Are you able
that's my
to?
self-care.
I was going to say, when you're in Mexico at a 2-week thing, are you able to really do self-care, or are you busy trying to facilitate the?
I shouldn't. Here's the thing: is that the women who come to our retreats, come back to our retreats, and so it's like they already are. They come, and many of them now are our coaches, so they hold space. Of course, I'm responsible for everything, and I'm aware and cognizant of what's going on, and I'm making sure that everybody is taken care of and their needs are taken care of and that they're happy, and I'm engaging with them, and it's all of that. But I'm, basically just doing what everybody else is doing, which is yoga, eating 3 gourmet meals a day, and lying on the beach or by the pool, connecting or reading or napping. So it really is the retreats are always just really what fill me up and kind of straighten me out again.
Mm-hmm. That sounds lovely.
So it is. It didn't used to be that way. I used to just be, we've done 19, right? So I'm probably for the first 10, I was probably on edge and codependent and worried about everybody. And now it's, I just come to believe that these experiences are co-creations, and I'm not responsible for their experience.
Right.
I'm responsible for creating the container for that experience, but I'm not responsible for how they kind of use that experience. And I mean, they're just magical experiences. So we don't end up with problems because it's just really hard to be unhappy in paradise.
Yeah, no.
Connected, surrounded by women who all they want to do is live their best life too, and share what's working for them, and laugh and, cry if we need to, and just heal under the sun. And with, we have totally nutritious meals. We do kind of no sugar, no gluten, dairy on the side. We can cater to vegetarian and vegan, but we also have, it's Mexico, so we have lots of beautiful chicken and seafood. And it's often, for me, it's a reset if I haven't been eating really well. If I've been traveling a lot and eating bread, which I generally don't do at home, which I've been doing this week. It's a reset in every way, lots of sleeping and napping and swimming and exercise and beach walking. And so the answer is yes. I take absolute wonderful care of myself. And, we've got Taryn and Peyton and Sharon Lee, our partner in Mexico. So there's 4 of us that are there being the container. And then the women who have been there 5 and 6 and 7 times before, they're showing everybody the ropes and helping them figure stuff out. So it's really, really amazing. And I'm craving it desperately right now.
I bet. I know. It sounds like you have a lot going on with your dad. And trying to take care of him. We have about 10 minutes left, and I want to be sure that we cover the event in LA this year it's at the Hilton.
Beverly Hilton.
Beverly Hilton.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the speakers and maybe some of the events around that.
Thank you. Well, we left San Francisco and we went up to LA and we spent 4 days at the Beverly Hilton. When we visited the hotels to figure out which one we wanted in October, we didn't spend a lot of time at any of them. It was just kind of like this tour of 5 or 6 different hotels. And I knew immediately that the Beverly Hilton was the place. And it wasn't only because when they were feeding us lunch, they came out and served us macaroons with our logo on it. But we joke that that pretty well clinched the deal.
Right.
But I really loved it. It's a little older hotel. So the Conrad where we were for New York City was just sleek and steel and modern and really, really awesome. And really what we wanted to promote, edgy, modern recovery. And the Beverly Hilton is just kind of a little softer. It's the home of the Golden Globes, right? So it's kind of got that old Hollywood thing going on, and there's pictures of stars and a beautiful, like the starlight pool, which is incredible. It's all this seating around the pool, and then there's a lounge, Starbucks lounge that is, again, lots of comfortable seating, and there's tons of comfortable seating in the lobby, and the International Ballroom where we'll have our speakers and most of our events is where the Golden Globes takes place. So it's just this phenomenal stage.
That's very cool.
The food is magnificent. It's just got a real comfortable feeling about it. The staff is wonderful. And we will be doing yoga there in the mornings. So we'll get there Friday night. We're going to have a mocktail. We'll have registration at about 3 and then a mocktail reception. Our speaker the first night is Cheryl Strayed. Cheryl Strayed. She wrote the book Wild and Dear Sugar. And then we'll actually this year, after the main speaker on Friday night, we're going to do a reception for solo travelers. So we found in New York that a lot of women came on their own without knowing other people. And we want to really just help them kind of feel comfortable if they want to connect and maybe, find somebody to sit with her. I mean, everybody's very welcoming to everybody else, but we just want to recognize that it's a hard thing to go to something like this on your own. So we want to provide an opportunity for them to connect.
Yeah, that's very brave.
And then we'll get up. Yeah, right. A lot of women did that in New York. We were amazed to hear the stories. And then Saturday morning, we get up very early, and Taryn will teach yoga, 6:30 until 8. And at the same time, for people who don't do yoga and who don't want to sleep in, there's going to be a run. They can do a run. We're in beautiful Beverly Hills, so there's a route that takes place. You just leave outside the front door, and it's all mapped out, and it's really lovely. And then we'll have, still finalizing the program, but we're going to have, the idea is that Friday night we're calling the convening. Saturday we're calling the conversation. So it'll be about, all the things that we're recovering from. So we're going to have a couple of speakers on Saturday morning, and then probably a panel with women recovering in different areas of their life. Then we'll have a lovely lunch. After lunch, I'm going to sit down with a seated conversation with Janet Mock. Janet Mock is a woman who, I'm not going to remember the name of her book. I've got to remember it next time.
I'll look it up and
Janet
post
Mock
it.
She's just amazing and beautiful. She's a trans woman and considered a leader in the trans movement. She's totally an advocate.
I know who you're talking about. I do. Yeah. She was on a Super Soul Sunday with Oprah.
Absolutely.
I just listened.
At the Oscars too.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I just today, maybe 4 hours ago, listened to the Super Soul Sunday conversation with Oprah. It's so funny.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
She's amazing. And what I really want to talk to her about is, we want to talk like identity and kind of being authentic and also, anyway, I don't want to give away too much, but what I want to talk to her about, but the fact of the matter is she is the leader of a movement, or considered a leader in a movement. And I want to talk to her about that. How do you kind of lead movements? Because we're a movement.
Right.
And we could use some of that advice, right?
Yeah.
So that's going to be magnificent. And then what happens after that? Then we're going to have breakout sessions in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And we're planning some cool things there. And then we'll have a few hours off so people can go and get purdied up if that's what they want to do, because Saturday night is the She Recovers Hope Gala. And we're going to have like red carpet and
fun.
Yeah, the step and repeat signs behind us and photo booth and we're gonna give some awards out that night. We've got some She Recovers awards that we're planning, and we're going to have some celebrity guests and some, hopefully some entertainers, some singers. We think Amy Dresner is going to speak that evening.
Nice. Yeah, she just wrote that book. Was published recently.
Yeah, absolutely. And we met her when we were in LA, actually. She's totally a hoot. She's so funny.
She's a kick
and yet she's amazing and so vulnerable and sweet. And then Sunday morning, get up, more yoga, and it will be yoga and meditation. A meditation teacher named Biet Simkin will be leading the yoga, leading the meditation. And it's a little premature to say perhaps, but Nicole Stewart, who's a fitness instructor to a lot of stars actually, and has a wonderful kind of fitness program, is going to do for those who don't want to do yoga and meditation but would rather do something more boot campy. We're going to offer that in the morning, and then we're going to do another panel. And so Friday night is the convening, Saturday is the conversations, Sunday is the call to action. So we want to have a panel of people who have really been kind of fire starters and been making waves and doing kind of launching projects in the recovery sphere in different areas of recovery and life. And then we want to invite other women to consider leaving that event and, what are you going to do? Like the call to action is, what are you going to do? Not only just to continue searching for wellness and living your best life, but to help other women who are seeking as well. And we have the amazing Tara Moore, who just, she wrote the book Playing Big, and she'll be kind of speaking. And she's from San Francisco. I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to hear her speak, but the book is amazing.
Playing
and
Big?
So, she's just going to kind of give us Playing Big, it's called. So she's going to give us some ideas around what playing big should look like.
I cannot wait to hear that one.
Yeah. And there's, a few other things in there as well. I don't know if you are a fan of Insight Timer meditations. If anybody is, there is probably the most popular meditation teacher on Insight Timer, which is an app that you can put on your phone for free, is Sarah Blondin. She does a series called Live Awake, and she's just got the most, you know her?
Yeah, I know. I know her name, and I think I've even done some of her meditations.
Oh, she's so awesome. She'll be a guest, so she'll be leading us in meditation at some time over the weekend as well. Yeah, I don't think I've forgotten anybody.
Listen,
I hope I haven't.
That's a lot, and I'm sure that, I know these things can fluctuate. There's still a little bit of time before September, so I'm sure.
Yeah, we've got some more people to add to the program, but I think I've...
But listen, just what you have mentioned sounds amazing. So we were planning on coming anyway, but now I'm even more excited. So
yeah, it's going to be great. And I will tell you that in New York City, we had Glennon Doyle, Elizabeth Vargas, Marianne Williamson, and Gabby Bernstein.
Yeah, that was huge.
It was like, afterwards we went like, what were we thinking? Who are we ever going to get now, right? Dumb.
No,
I will tell
brilliant.
you, the feedback that we got, which was, that the speakers were all fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was just such a draw and so meaningful. That wasn't the magic. That wasn't the total magic of the weekend. It was being in a room full of 500 women who were like, look at us.
Yeah.
The energy and just the connection and the you sit down at a table with 10 women that you'd never met before and skip the small talk. You're just right into the meat of the matter. And because that's what happens with women in recovery, right?
Yeah, we don't do small talk very well. Yeah.
Not very well.
What's really going on?
Forward to.
Yeah, and I love that it creates this atmosphere of authenticity, right? And so people, we drop the BS and, speak from our heart. And I love that you've created this container of collaboration instead of competition, and that everyone is sharing ideas of, how to heal, because this can be, it's a rough world for women sometimes. And, I really feel like we're in this movement. It's like the second feminist movement, where we're doing it, together and having another surge. So I just love the work that you're doing. I know we're coming up on our
thank
time, and you're you were so gracious as to continue to do the podcast. I know you're not feeling well, so you did great. You sounded amazing, so you did
Oh, great. Yeah. I'm going to hang up the phone and cough for 10 minutes.
I know.
Because I've been holding it all in.
Bless your heart. Well,
But
listen, Dawn, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you,
I really
Arlena.
appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
Yeah, and I'll look
My
forward to
pleasure.
seeing you in LA.
Well, and I hope we talk before then. And thank you very much again for your contribution and the work that you're doing. It's so important. And, one of our taglines, we have so many taglines. We should probably just stick with one. But we basically have three things. We always say we're all recovering from something. Our tagline is kind of connect, support, and empower. And then, the one that I say probably most often is we're stronger together. So I just always appreciate meeting women like you who are really, really making a difference. And I know the work that goes into doing some of this stuff. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And it means a lot coming from you with all that you're doing. So yeah, together we're better. So
yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
You have a great day.
Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
One last thing before you go, if you enjoyed the podcast today, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher and leave a review. And if you'd like to make a donation to the podcast and help me keep the lights on, you can do so by visiting odatchat.com. There's a donation button or membership button on the right-hand side. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.